You worked at these hotshot companies like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, and Arctic Wolf. And in CrowdStrike, you were at the journey pre-IPO to IPO. So you've been there, done that. You were a solutions architect, you've been a systems engineer, and you have had a stint as an angel investor. What is it that you have not done, basically? Tell us who is Damien.
No, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Tell me why you think the cybersecurity landscape is broken and how you're trying to make a difference through Nebulock.
I think there are plenty of security companies out there, and we as an industry have done a really good job of finding very specific problems and building very specific solutions for those problems.
Why Boston and why not Silicon Valley?
It's funny, I'm a Bay Area native, right? Like my family lives there. I'm one of 4 kids, my 3 siblings and my nephew, everybody's out there. Boston actually has 2 of the best research institutions in the world, and we have 67 universities. In terms of talent, Boston has a tremendous amount of talent, and I think actually gets overlooked there. So my belief was, Boston is a place that has a tremendous innovation economy if you just scratch beneath the surface.
Well, one last hot take. Do you think SaaS is dead? Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. We bring trailblazers and change makers to this podcast. And today I have the privilege and honor of bringing in Damien Lewke, someone who's extremely intriguing because he goes to MIT at the peak of his career in cybersecurity to study cybersecurity, and he majors in on cyber resilience and security for the cloud. Not just that, he's a world class football player and he's a marathoner who did Boston Marathon and raised a bunch of capital. Now, he brings all this learning into his journey as a startup founder, building something called as Nebulock, which talks about vibe hunting. So we have somebody who's extremely counterintuitive in his thinking. His takes are very hot. Damien, welcome to Pitch Cafe podcast.
Thank you, Vida. It's nice to be here.
Wonderful. So, Damien, tell me, unpack this intriguing person behind Damien. You worked at these hotshot companies like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, and Arctic Wolf. And in CrowdStrike, you were at the journey pre IPO to IPO. So, you've been there, done that. You were a solutions architect, you've been a systems engineer, and you have had a stint as an angel investor. You have the world class player Mario Götze on your cap table. He's from Germany. So, what is it that you have not done basically? Tell us who's Damien.
Well, I'd say my knowledge of 1940s musical theater is pretty bad. There are lots of... No, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. Save threat hunting, which is my passion. If anyone's ever played team sports, and if you haven't, that's also completely okay. But in my experience, football was really important because it taught me 3 core lessons. The first was that the needs of the team are greater than the needs of your own, right? Like when it comes to playing a position, playing a role, if you play 5 minutes, if you play all 90 minutes, in soccer it's 2 45-minute halves, you're all focused on one key goal, which is winning. So the first is winning is one. The second is consistency is far more important than moments of brilliance, right? The way to become a great athlete, the way to become a great teammate is to be consistent, to stay focused, and honestly, to become dependable and trustworthy. And then finally, really when it comes to building an organization, to really focus on this idea of meritocracy. There were players who I played with who came from really great clubs and thought that they were going to be God's gift to the team that we were playing on, and they didn't see any playing time and left early because they couldn't find a place in our team, right? Really, it's about buying into the culture, the ethos of what your organization is trying to achieve, and then moving together forward. And if you prove yourself at the opportunities that are given, right, you will continue to rise as the company rises. So football has been very centric to how I think about building an organization and building a team. In terms of cybersecurity, I was very fortunate to be in the right place, right time. I studied adversarial game theory in undergrad, and I was presented with the opportunity in the DoD at Northrop Grumman to think about how nation-state adversaries might target sophisticated weapon systems. And from that moment, I was hooked. So happy to dig into that, but I'd say kind of who I am as a person. I'm a middle child, very close with family, have an amazing wife who's been with me every step of the way. and really, really honored and graciously excited to have the opportunity to be the founder of Nebulock and to be building and leading, in my opinion, one of the best teams in security.
Wonderful. So why do you call it Nebulock? What's behind the name?
Yeah, so I'll make a very long story short. It's to provide clarity out of what is nebulous.
Hmm.
Threat hunting is all around identifying and convicting anomalous behaviors, right? But it's really challenging because every enterprise environment is different. You want to understand behavioral baselines. It's this very chaotic, nebulous mess of data. So the
Hmm.
idea was, how do you lock that down? How do you bring that picture into focus? So
Yeah.
that's the spirit behind Nebulock.
Wonderful. So, one of the most counterintuitive decisions you made, you went to MIT CSAIL to study cyber resilience, and your thesis work was on cloud. So, why did you make that move? Like, who does that? Why didn't you jump into a startup journey? Because you worked at Palo Alto Networks, you worked at CrowdStrike, and you also had, like you mentioned, Northern Group. You worked with really sophisticated technology. Why did you choose to go to academia?
Two core reasons. I was very fortunate to be, part of the CrowdStrike pre-IPO team. For folks who know me, I'm a huge CrowdStriker and still a very big fan. And that ethos of stopping the adversary from the DoD to CrowdStrike has molded how I think about security and really what I believe to be a moral responsibility of what we have as security companies to enable network defenders. While I learned a lot, I really wanted to take some time and dig into research around, obviously, AI has been in security in many fits and starts in different phases since the 60s and 70s. But natural language processing, deep learning, like those were becoming much more mature as a capability. And I wanted to spend some time really digging into that, and I wanted to kind of go back to the source. So spend some time, let my mind really soak up and understand what's happening, and do that with some of the best researchers in the world at CSAIL. So calculated move, definitely was evaluating, staying at Palo Alto and growing the career there. There were a few startups that I was speaking to as well, but ultimately made the decision to take some time off and go back to school. And I'd make that decision 10 times out of 10.
Okay, wonderful. So now talking to the Damien, who has completed his studies at MIT CSAIL, what does cybersecurity landscape look like to Damien after he spends time in the industry, goes back to academia, and then he feels like I'm ready to take on the next thing? What is this landscape? Break it down for us, please.
Yeah, there were three key lessons I learned at MIT, particularly going deeper into the research and understanding kind of what was out there. I was also very fortunate to be studying at CSAIL when ChatGPT dropped in November of 2022. Fun aside, I was in an AI class in the fall of 2022, and there were 9 students. The next semester, we had 133 sign up for the same class. So it
Okay.
was one of those things that just like complete explosion. But really, what I saw coming out of MIT were three things. The first was the opportunity for generative models to enable with data analysis and workflow orchestration, right? I was like, okay, we're proving this in research. We're starting to see this with the ChatGPT moment. Like, this is fundamentally going to shift the way that we engage with data sets from a security perspective. The second is that there's still a lot of value in traditional machine learning when it comes to signal generation, right?
Yeah.
And there's a delineation between like what generative AI systems and large language models are good at versus what traditional heuristics and ML can do. And then finally, I saw this shift from what I'd call uh, deeper signal generation, right? So at MIT, we were doing a lot of research around like long tail forensic analysis and risk quantification and secure information sharing to more like, okay, wait a minute, like there are these first order problems in security around like the work that humans have to do to keep organizations safe. And we have a capability to do that now.
Yeah.
Which is what led me to take the role as a director of product for Arctic Wolf Labs.
Wonderful. So Damien, you've seen the ChatGPT moment. You know what generative AI can do,
Hmm.
and you have this hot take. Cybersecurity systems are currently very broken, and you started Nebulock to kind of start the process of a more holistic approach to cybersecurity. Tell me why you think the cybersecurity landscape is broken and how you're trying to make a difference through Nebulock.
I think there are plenty of security companies out there, and we as an industry have done a really good job of finding very specific problems and building very specific solutions for those problems.
Yeah,
The challenge is for organizations that leads to two key issues. The first is you've got vendor bloat. So I've got a bunch of different systems that I all need to leverage to do a particular workflow.
yeah,
The second problem is, we did a really good job of shifting from what I call prevention to detection, right? Like we
yeah,
realized we couldn't prevent everything, so we'd detect things, we'd store this telemetry, we'd give folks the means with which to query those data sets. Um, but the talent gap and skills gap never quite caught up with that. So
mhm,
instead, now what we're doing is paying a lot more to store this data and still relying on very single threaded, human driven workflows.
yeah,
And the opportunity that we saw at Nebulock was, you know, we're still inherently reactive. We're waiting for what we call right of boom, for the incident to happen, for the breach to occur, for us to get an alert and respond to it. When in fact, like when adversaries are moving faster and faster, we need to really shift this focus towards being proactive. And proactivity in the past was what I started my career out doing, which is threat hunting. But now it's more than that. This is not a human driven workflow, but something that really should be an agentically enabled human capability, right? We should be building something that is continuously proactive, that is continuously using the data that we already have because we pay
yeah.
for it and it's really good, but surfacing new signal because that's where the actual breach is going to occur instead of waiting for us to know something bad has happened.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, is that what you call cyber resilience, or is there something more to
Uh,
cyber resilience? Yeah,
Yeah, so cyber resilience. So cyber resilience is a little different, but I think proactivity is a core component of resilience. Resilience is the ability to be impacted but continue your mission, right? So organizations, what I was looking at, say, as part of my work at MIT, was okay, based on my environment, based on the threat vectors and the impact that an adversary can have on my system, can I continue to function as a business? So the idea there is how do you effectively manage risk, specifically operational risk,
yeah,
in the context of whatever the mission, the service, the goal of your organization is.
yeah. Wonderful. So, on that note, I do want to come back to your journey at Nebulock. There are a couple of things I want to unpack. You are flying solo. You're a solo founder.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a counterintuitive move. And then you picked to stay at Boston versus Silicon Valley. This Silicon Valley is where all the hot cybersecurity startups get visibility right away. So
Mm-hmm.
tell me why you decided to fly solo. I know you're a marathoner, but you did talk about playing as a team, because soccer is
Mm-hmm.
what shaped your mindset to a large extent. And then why Boston and why not Silicon Valley?
Yeah. So the flying solo part really was, point in time thinking about who else I would want to bring on as part of that journey.
Yeah,
And personally for me, I was singularly motivated. I thought that, and I still remain convinced that like time was of the essence.
yeah,
And just being pragmatic, I had conviction and I was like, I'm going to try. And obviously I want to bring folks along. So we have early an early founding engineering team, an early group of folks that have been a part of that. But the reason for flying solo really was just like, I see a problem. I want to solve it. I'm going to throw everything I can at this.
yeah,
And then why build in Boston? It's funny. I'm a Bay Area native, right? Like
yeah,
my
yeah,
family lives there. I'm one of four kids. My three siblings and my nephew, everybody's out there. Boston actually has two of the best research institutions in the
yeah,
world, and we have 67 universities. In terms of talent, Boston has a tremendous amount of talent, and I think actually gets overlooked there. So my belief was, Boston is a place that has a tremendous innovation economy. If you just scratch beneath the surface, we've also built great security companies here. QRadar, Resilience at IBM. Obviously, you've got Cybereason, another 7AI out of Boston as well. Like we do have security companies. And to me, I was like, I think we can dig into that. You also have RSA. To me, it really was the fact that we do have a good heritage and we do have a good innovation economy.
But then this is great. So I'm very curious. You're a marathoner, and then you did a Boston Marathon. You raced 7.5K for cancer. What kind of learnings do you bring from the marathon? Because you're like a solo founder, it is pretty much a marathon. You raised $8.5 million from Bain
Hmm.
Capital. You've got Zeta Ventures. You've got a bunch of great VCs backing you. So how do you bring those learnings to your startup founding journey?
Yeah, and I'm fortunate to have had the chance to run the Boston Marathon for charity a couple of times, right? Two core things. Endurance sports are not for everyone, so I hope that this analogy is helpful. But a marathon is all about preparation, pacing, and ultimately execution.
Mhm.
Preparation, not just physically, but mentally, right? You're going to be running for 3.5, 4 hours. You're going to need to think about like what you need to eat, how you need to sleep, how you need to hydrate. And then, of course, there's the 4 grueling months of sacrificed weekends doing 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 mile long runs.
Yeah.
When I think about this as a founder, it really is I want to, and I believe that Nebulock will be an enduring great company, which means that we want to build for the long term. Of course, there are short term milestones, right? We want to find product market fit. We want to continue to demonstrate and show accelerating traction. We, of course, are bringing in some of the best talent that's out there. But really, when it comes to building this company, it's bringing in people who are here for the long haul, who understand the vision, who we can continue to build and grow as this company grows and accelerates into our future.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is like being a founder is great. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Like there are good days and there are challenging days. There are fast days and there are slow days. The same way that in a marathon, like mile 16 might have been great, but mile 19 is grueling. And like you sometimes just have to like grit your teeth and get through it to mile 21 when you know like you can do 5.2 more miles and finish this thing up. So that's the other aspect is just knowing like consistency is key, staying focused, staying in the game. That's really what's going to drive this company forward. So a lot of lessons learned. Looking forward to my next marathon. Lots of good things to look forward to.
Wonderful. And any specific hack you use during marathoning or uh, while making your tough decisions in a startup? Is there any mental framework you use, like to keep going, or something that
Mm-hmm.
works for you?
Yes. For big decisions, this is not related to marathoning, but I tend to give myself the 72-hour rule, right? If there's like a big decision that I want to grapple with, I will give myself up to 72 hours to
Yeah.
think about and sit with the decision. Just
Yeah.
helps me process and understand really like, okay, how do I feel about this? On the marathon bit, yes, great mental framework. It's called One More Mile. So the
Uh-huh.
key is like if you think about anything large in totality, that can be overwhelming. But if you think about the next mile, like mile 3 will turn into mile 13, will turn into mile 23, and before you know it, you've crossed the finish line. It's the same way that I approach a lot of what I have to do in terms of company building, which is like there are all these great problems I see for us when we're a 500-person company. It's not where we're at, right? We're like 17 people, and the key is to find product market fit. So really, it's okay, what's that next unlock? What's that next key point? Like we've got this killer feature. What's the next use case that we want to deliver on? Because it helps anchor me and it anchors the team. It also keeps you present because it's really great to dream, but when time is of the essence, you have to stay focused on the here and now.
This is amazing. I love this. This is one of the best hot takes you've given me today. On that note, let's get to the core of what you do. Tell us all about your latest product launch,
Yeah.
vibe hunting. What is vibe hunting and what is agentic about it? Explain to the layman what your product does.
Yeah. So we just launched Vibe Hunting. Vibe hunting is the realization of what we've wanted to do for this company's existence, right? Vibe hunting really is about making threat hunting less about the how and more about its outcomes, right? So instead of just like thinking about querying data sets, it's really like what happens when you do that? What's the output? So it informs incident response, it bridges the gap between hypothesis and detection, so idea and bad thing that you found, and it really focuses security teams on relevant threat informed defense activities. The challenge you run into a lot, especially when it comes to something like threat hunting, back to a marathon, is it's really easy to be like, okay, I can ask any question of my data. What do I want to do? Instead, this focuses on like, hey, you're a late stage tech company out of the Bay Area. Like you have these particular threat vectors because your environment looks like this. Not like, okay, go look for some random exploit
Yeah.
that has no impact on you. So it's really focusing folks on outcomes.
Yeah, and how big is this market? What is missing in the current market? What's the kind of gap that you're filling in?
Yeah. So, threat hunting is a growing market. I think it applies across a few different components of security, right? People threat hunt in their endpoint detection and response system, in their security incident event management system, in using their threat intelligence platform. They use Jupyter Notebook to do statistical analysis. And in fact, it's that disparate tool set that tells me just how broken threat hunting is.
Yeah.
That's not to disparage people that do threat hunt. It's more like, hey, we see a reason to rationalize and consolidate these capabilities into one platform.
Wonderful. And you're very big on outcome based pricing. There's
Mm-hmm.
usage based pricing. There's probably per user pricing. But you're saying the market is headed towards outcome based pricing. Um, I mean, AI is a technology that requires a lot of expensive management. In terms of infrastructure. How does outcome based pricing make sense? No, it doesn't work out. Let's say you did all this work and the outcome is not there because there was no threat in the first place. Then how do you justify the pricing?
Yeah. So I think the key is to prepare for that eventuality, right? Threat hunting, I think, gets kind of a bad rap sometimes because a lot of times you don't find a bad thing. The key
Which is
is for us, which is true, right?
yeah.
Like sometimes you aren't breached, which is a great problem to have, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
the key with outcomes for us is okay, great, but like if that activity is still valuable for me to understand, I
Mhm.
should be able to translate that idea into a detective control. I
Yeah.
should be able to have a detection that spots that idea. So when we think about outcomes and how we build our product and how we price it, is look, I guarantee you we will find something interesting in our
Mhm,
POC.
mhm.
Is it bad? We'll find out. I guarantee you as well that no matter what, you will have the ability to flexibly translate any idea that you have as it pertains to your environment, so long as we cover it, into a detective control, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
beauty of Nebulock is like you can use that within our platform. So you can build this detection and have Nebulock generate new signal. A lot of folks run their custom detections in their SIM or in a detection CI/CD pipeline. Great. We push to those as well. So we're supposed to be flexible and extensible. That's the whole point. And the key is like, no matter what, you're going to learn something, and we allow you to codify that lesson learned.
Wonderful. And you've talked about this philosophy of setting the edge and building tech that might only work 60% of the time initially. How do you justify this kind of assumption of the goal, especially in cybersecurity, where you have to
Mm-hmm.
be accurate 99% of the time?
Yeah. So to be very clear, all of our production systems are operating well within 90 plus percent like high efficacy. But setting the edges, to your point, it's particularly as it pertains to AI research and stretching agents as far as they can go. You basically want to build at the edge of whatever an LLM is capable of, right? So we want to see when like non-deterministic systems like really start to break down, right, and push those use cases because as the foundation model providers evolve, right? Whatever use case was inconsistent, was not quite there, is certainly going to be there in the future.
Yeah.
So, really, for us, it's much more a philosophy around like, of course, you want to build for the here and now, and what our customers get is highly reliable, battle tested, and proven. But for research, like, we want to see and start building for the future by exploring kind of where the edge is in terms of what AI is capable of, because we know that there's going to be that next step evolution. And when that shift happens, we have something that has been built for that eventuality.
So you're kind of trying to be ahead of the technology shifts. You're trying to play ahead of time.
As much as we can be, right? I don't have a crystal ball, and I, am not Sam Altman, so I don't know exactly where that's going. But the idea is to think about the future, right? Because this field is moving just so fast.
Yeah, wonderful. And you've got this amazing blogs on Substack. You talk a lot about the cybersecurity industry, where it is headed. What is one of your most favorite takes on Substack, which people can read and understand? I know you've been talking about vibe hunting and threat hunting, but
Hmm.
honestly, what is the take which you really resonate with?
Yeah. There are two. One, it's funny. I wrote this, and now it's true because Anthropic talked about it last or 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
which is it was a Substack I wrote during Black Hat, so in early August of this year, which was our autonomous POCs, a proof of what is to come. And I think we've all realized the reality of agentically driven kill chains are here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anthropic did a great write up. I want to shout out them. Like, go read the report. It is highly helpful. And I think it's a great example of like a Chinese nation state actor used Anthropic to execute
Yeah.
a kill chain completely agentically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means that the barrier to entry for sophisticated attackers, this like gap between nation state hackers or elite hackers and script kiddies,
Yeah.
is like that chasm has become a blurred line.
Yeah.
That's just something we have to accept. So that was one hot take that I guess like um, did come true. So that was interesting. I think the other aspect is um, I wrote a piece on this called The Quiet War, but it really is about the importance of the human in the loop when it comes to network defense in an agentic future,
Yeah.
right? It's really, really important to understand, we don't know if AI is going to be Skynet or Chappie. We just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very clear that it is here to stay, and we
Yeah.
need to accept that bad actors are going to use it. So when we think about that, being really thoughtful and reticent about the human in the loop and the hunter in the loop, the detection engineer in the loop, how people think, right? How we reason, how we understand our environments, that capability, that experience is going to be really, really critical when it comes to staying secure in a truly autonomously offensive future.
Yeah, this is amazing. I love the fact that you talk about the closing gap of the hunter, threat hunter. These people who can prompt engineer, who don't have sophisticated knowledge of the cybersecurity landscape. They just need to get hold of that one blind spot, and then they can rig the system. So, what do you think we need to do differently, other than thinking or embodying the threat hunter's personality? What else needs to change in the cybersecurity landscape? I know you talked about consolidated tools, which is great, but what else needs to be counterintuitively um, accepted? Like,
Yeah, I think tactically today, right? If you're a security leader and you're thinking about how and where to adopt AI, like to go fast, you need to go slow. Take a
mm,
beat. I know everybody has pressure to implement AI right now, and ideally you would have implemented agentic capabilities in the past.
yeah,
But don't just like go for the first vendor that speaks to you. Think through what parts of your security program are ripe for disruption with AI, and
yeah,
where are your network defenders critical.
yeah,
That would be like my primary take on what needs to happen today.
yeah.
And certainly, right, this field is evolving so fast. More will be revealed.
Wonderful. One last hot take. Do you think SAS is dead?
Oh, no, not quite.
Okay.
I do, it is interesting just in terms of like what AI is disrupting. I know we were chatting a little bit about this before we started recording. I am very curious in a non-cyber way to see what the future of education looks like
Right.
with AI.
Hmm.
I've got folks who are close to me who are thinking of going back to school. And like when I was in grad school 3, 4 years ago, right? Like I had to write out 30-page, 40-page, 50-page research papers. I actually think we're going to see an uptick in like philosophy and humanities folks, people who really, because it's about how you use these systems and also understand their limitations, there's
Yeah,
going to be like a greater emphasis focused on like critical reasoning and like meticulous thought. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, right? Because
that's a
back
hot
in the day,
take.
I had to use.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. The chief, maybe we'll have a chief philosophy officer in every company.
you
In
know,
order.
I it it almost makes sense though, right? So many companies talk about their why, and I'm like, maybe you should have someone who's employed to think about that,
Yeah.
as a full time job. Maybe.
Oh, that's great. That's great. One last thing which all founders and all students would want to learn from you, since you went back to academia, then you were a founder, and then you were a hardcore techie before you went back to academia. What are some
Mhm.
of the skills that are essential today to succeed in a career in cybersecurity, no matter what you're doing, or generally in technology? What are some of those core skills people should focus on to have a
Yeah.
good career in technology?
Curiosity, creativity, drive, right? Passion will get you far. I'm very passionate about what I do. That is only like part of it. Really, I think security is well suited for folks who are curious and creative, because we have to think outside the box. We want to outthink the bad guy on the other side of the screen, right? So I think those are helpful. But drive, right? We have to be consistent, for better or for worse, right? Like adversaries only have to be right once. We have to be right all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
So how do we stay engaged and stay focused? I think is really critical.
wonderful. So, Damien, what is the best way for the audience to reach you? And is there any specific help you're looking for in your company? Are you raising funds or are you hiring? Um, what's your request?
Yeah, we are always hiring. So if you're looking at working in and across engineering functions, please reach out. And in terms of best way to reach out, I'm on LinkedIn. I'd also say like try vibehunting.com. Check out Vibe Hunting, mess around with it, see what you think. It's a demo playground environment, so it's representative, but not like directly related to our production systems. But I think it's a great way to get an understanding for how we're thinking about lowering the barrier to entry for folks, so that everyone can become a threat hunter, and that a threat hunter can now have a swarm of agents that assist with that process.
Wonderful. And are you talking to any investors? Are you raising currently or you're not?
No, we're just focused on product market fit.
Okay, wonderful. Heads down building an awesome product. Damien,
Exactly.
thank you so much for the past half hour you spent with us. I know it's been a wild ride for you, but it was a fascinating ride for me just getting to know you. I hope to have you back once again. Please come say hi when you're in the Bay Area. And thank you so much.
I shall. Thank you, Vida. The,
Yeah,
the pleasure was mine. Appreciate
wonderful.
it.
Wonderful.